You're wiping sawdust off your hands in your garage at midnight, staring at a massive wooden entertainment center you just built for a neighbor. You agreed on a price of $2,000. You delivered it, you set it up. And now, 3 weeks later, his texts just stopped. You knocked on his door, and he promised he would have the cash Friday. Friday came and went. Now you're holding a pile of expensive lumber receipts. Your bank account is empty, and you're wondering if you just worked for free for a month. You know you can't afford a fancy attorney to chase this guy down, but you might be able to use the courts yourself. Let's look at exactly how that works, why it's designed for people exactly like you, and the traps that will sink your case before you even speak to the judge. What you're looking for is called small claims court. Small claims court is a special branch of the legal system designed specifically for everyday people to resolve disputes quickly and cheaply without needing to hire an expensive lawyer. In fact, in many states, attorneys aren't even allowed to represent clients in small claims court at all. It's literally designed for you to walk in, tell your story, and let a judge make a decision. The trade-off for this simplicity is a strict limit on how much money you can ask for. This limit varies wildly depending on where you live. In some states, the absolute maximum you can sue for is $2,500. In others, it's $5,000, and in a few states, it goes all the way up to $10,000 or even $25,000. You have to check your specific county or state court website to find your local limit, because if someone owes you $12,000 and your local limit is $5,000, you've a difficult choice to make. Let's walk through this with our woodworker. You're owed exactly $2,000. You're well under the limit anywhere in the country. The very first concept you must understand is the jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is simply the official power of a specific court to make a legal decision over a specific geographic area. You can't just drive to the closest courthouse if it happens to be on your way to work. You have to file your case in the jurisdiction where the dispute actually happened, or where the person you're suing currently lives. If you built the furniture in your garage, but you delivered it to a buyer who lives 2 counties away, you'll likely have to file your paperwork in his county, not yours. The court needs to have jurisdiction over that specific person, which usually means they live, work, or conduct business within the lines drawn on the map for that specific courthouse. The person doing the suing is called the plaintiff. The plaintiff is simply the person who claims they were wronged and brings the lawsuit to court. The person getting sued is called the defendant. The defendant is the person being accused of causing the harm, which in this scenario is the neighbor who refuses to pay for the entertainment center. Now, you might be wondering what happens if the guy moved out of state right after you dropped off the furniture. This is where things get incredibly frustrating. If he completely moved across the country, you probably can't use small claims court anymore. The local judge near you only has jurisdiction over people who live near you. If the defendant left the state, your local court loses its power over him. You'd have to chase him to his new state, which almost always requires a standard attorney and a lot more money. For a $2,000 debt, it's usually financially impossible to pursue someone across state lines. This happens all the time, and the jurisdiction rules exist because courts simply don't have the power to reach across borders easily. Let's assume he still lives in the same county. You find the right courthouse website. The paperwork you need to fill out to start this whole process is called the complaint. The complaint is the official legal document where you lay out exactly who the defendant is, how much money he owes you, and the simple story of why he owes it. You don't need to write a novel. When it's your turn to speak, you don't give a massive speech, you stick to the cold facts. Your Honor, we agreed on $2,000 for a custom oak entertainment center. Here are the text messages showing the agreement. Here are the receipts for the wood. Here's the photograph of it sitting in his living room. He stopped responding to me on this date. The judge will look at your evidence. He will look directly at the neighbor and ask for his side of the story. The neighbor might say the wood was scratched, or that he changed his mind, or that it was supposed to be made of cherry wood instead of oak. The judge has seen thousands of these disputes. He knows exactly what a reasonable contract looks like, even if it's just a string of text messages. After listening to both sides, the judge will make a ruling. A ruling is the official decision made by the judge about who wins the case and how much money is owed. The judge will usually not tell you right then and there. He might take a few days to think about it and mail you a formal document called a judgment. The judgment is the final, legally binding court order that states the defendant owes you a specific amount of money. When you win, you don't become the plaintiff anymore. You become something called the judgment creditor. A judgment creditor is simply the person who won the lawsuit and now has the legal right to collect the money owed. The neighbor becomes the judgment debtor. The judgment debtor is the person who lost the lawsuit and is legally ordered by the court to pay the money. But here's the hardest truth about small claims court, and you need to hear it before you ever file a single piece of paper. Winning the judgment is often the easy part. Actually getting the cash in your hands is usually the hardest part of the entire process. The court doesn't collect the money for you. The judge won't send a police officer to his house to demand a check. The court simply gives you a piece of paper that says he owes you the money. If he still refuses to pay, you've to go back to the courthouse and file even more paperwork to force him to pay. You can ask the judge for a bank levy. A bank levy is a legal order that allows the sheriff to literally walk into his bank, freeze his account, and take the money out to give to you. You can ask for a wage garnishment. A wage garnishment is a legal order sent directly to his employer, forcing his boss to deduct a portion of his paycheck every single week and mail it to you until the debt is completely paid off. Every single one of these collection methods requires more filing fees, more specific forms, and more waiting. It's incredibly important that you understand this before you start, because some people are completely broke and uncollectible. If the guy has absolutely no money in his bank account and works entirely off the books for cash, you might have a very hard time getting your money, even with a perfect court judgment in your hand. Filing a small claims case gives you the actual power of the legal system without needing a massive bankroll to hire an attorney. It's a tool built specifically for the blue-collar worker who got stiffed on a job, the tenant who lost a deposit, or the neighbor whose fence was destroyed by a careless lawnmower. You just have to follow the exact rules of your local jurisdiction, serve the papers correctly, and bring your printed evidence. And if the amount of money you're owed is higher than your local small claims limit, or if the person moved completely out of state, that's the exact moment you need to stop trying to handle it alone and sit down with a litigator. A litigator is a trial attorney who handles standard lawsuits in the regular court system. A local attorney can tell you quickly if the debt is large enough to justify their fees, or if you should just walk away and take the loss as a hard lesson learned. What is the most frustrating excuse you've ever heard from someone who refused to pay you for an honest job? Tell me down in the comments. If this breakdown helped you understand how to use the legal system to chase down money you're owed, please pass the video along to a buddy who is currently stressing over a massive unpaid invoice. Make sure you subscribe to Scribble Law so you always know the actual rules of the game before a broken promise tries to drain your bank account.